Hello and welcome to Algebra 1. Our topic for today's lesson is dividing monomials. Our objective is students will simplify the quotient of two monomials by using quotient properties. Now, in the last lesson, we learned about finding the product of two monomials. And in this lesson, we're finding the quotient. So before, we were multiplying monomials using multiplication properties. And today, we are doing a little bit of the same thing, except we're dealing with division. Today, we are going to find what is the division of two monomials using quotient properties. So division properties for monomials. So before we dive into the lesson, there is some background knowledge that we need to have in order to be successful at learning this lesson. And that background knowledge is on simplifying fractions. Since we're going to be dealing with division and division of monomials, we are going to be a lot of dividing, and I want to make sure that we know the basic principles of simplifying fractions, which is basic arithmetic. Now, in order to know where everyone's at, we're going to take a little quiz on simplifying fractions, and the quiz is very short. It's only 8 questions, and 2 of those questions are review from the last lesson. So we are going to go on Socrative.com, and you can log in as a student and log in using this room number. So this is what the website looks like. This is Socrative.com. This is where you're going to go, and you're going to click log in. So you're a student, so you're going to do student login, and you're going to put the room name. Once you put the room name, you click join, and you're going to write down your name. Click done, and once you do that, it's going to go straight into the quiz. Now, I know the word quiz sounds intimidating, but this is not for grade. Just do your best. I just want to see where we're at, and even if you miss some, that's okay. We're going to go over them and make sure that we really get this before we jump into the lesson. So go ahead and try this quiz now, and then we're going to review the answers and see where we're at. Great job on the quiz. You did amazing. And it's good that we went over some of the questions, because now we all have a better understanding on how to simplify fractions, and just knowing the simple steps to simplifying a fraction is going to help us a lot today as we try to divide monomials. So this is our outline for today. The introduction, which we already went over. We activated our prior knowledge of fractions through the Socrative quiz, and now we have to go into the content for today's lesson. So we're going to go over the quotient of monomials. We're going to see exactly what quotient of monomials looks like. We've been talking about that, but we're finally going to see what exactly are we talking about when we say quotient of monomials. We are going to introduce the quotient of powers property. There are 4 properties. So the first one is the quotient of powers. Then they have the power of a quotient. These sound very similar, but they're kind of different. And then we're going to investigate the zero and negative exponents. After that, we are going to check for understanding, and you will be doing another quiz, but again, it's not for grade, but you all must participate. It's just providing feedback, seeing how you're doing with the lesson, with the information, and answering a few questions about the properties that we went over. After that, we are going to finish the lesson with the zero exponent property, the negative exponent property, and finally, we're going to do our assignment or assessment, which is task cards. And when we get there, I'll give you instructions on how we're going to do that. Now, throughout the lesson, we are going to be seeing different examples and definitions, but I want you to keep in mind the 4 quotient properties. And in order to do that, you are going to access this document. It has already been shared with you. So you're going to write your name, the date, and the class. And as we go through the lesson, I want you to keep an eye on every time we introduce a new property. So I want you to write in words what the property is. And then I want you to write an example. And you need to come up with your own example of the property. So when it comes to time, you can add an example in two ways. You can insert an equation. So you go to insert, you go to equation. And we're going to be using a lot of fractions. So you have to use a fraction symbol. And if you want to add, for example, x cubed, you're going to have to click here. X cubed. There you go. And you can just add a term on the bottom, and maybe we just want x. So then after that, I'm not going to show you what the property looks like right now, but as we go through it, you can start filling out on an example of what the quotient of powers property looks like. And you can do that for all of them. Now, if the writing of the equation seems a little bit too complicated for you, in this way, you can also just draw it. So you can go to Insert, Drawing, New, and it's going to take you here. So go to Line, Scribble, and there it is. I'm just doing the exact same thing. And then you can just draw what it looks like. So you can say save and close. And now you have the drawing there. So either way it's fine. If you printed it out, you can use your pencil. I encourage you to do it this way just so you know how to write fractions on a Word document or on a PowerPoint. It's a good skill to have. So yeah, so as we go through the lesson, I want you to keep an eye on the properties and write your definition and an example of your own. So now that we have gone over the quotient of powers and the power of a quotient property, we have arrived at our investigation of 0 and the negative exponent. So for that, you're going to have to open a document dividing monomials on your Google Doc. So this is what this document looks like. You are going to be completing these. You can use your calculator for this, obviously. And once you're done, we're going to have a little bit of a discussion on this. Great job on your investigation. So from your results, we were able to see 3 weird results. So the first 2 is that 2 to the power of 0 is 1. And that 5 to the power of 0 is also 1. So we're going to investigate this a little bit farther. And the other result was that when you have 0 to the power of 0, we had contradicting results. Some of you said that your calculator said only fine, but others said that the answer was 1. So that's a conflicting result that we are also going to investigate. But before we move on with the further investigation, I want you to fill out this feedback form to see how you're doing, how you're feeling about the lesson so far, about the properties, and to answer some questions to see how we're doing. Great job! So now we have filled out the form and we have finished investigating the negative exponent property and the 0 exponent property. And now we are ready to move forward to our assessment. So before we move on with our assessments, I want to make sure that you have finished filling out this quotient properties worksheet. This is what mine looks like. These are the examples that I picked. And having this one is going to help you with the assessment. So for your assessment, you are going to have task cards, and these have been shared with you already. For this, you can go at your own pace and even skip around. But I want you to at least try to finish these 3 and work on your own for these 3. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me and even ask your partner. For these task cards, you can go at your own pace and even skip around if there's some that are too hard or too easy, you can skip around. But the first 3 slides, the first 3 problem slides, I want you to work on your own. And if you have questions about these 3, please ask me. For the other ones, you can ask each other questions, that's fine, as long as you are turning in your own work. So please work on these on a separate sheet of paper and turn that in. So this is my lesson.